Hello, today we're going to talk about vectors. Now, how do I draw vectors? That's going to be our first thing. And the first thing I really want to talk about though is what is a vector? A vector is one of two types of units used in physics. Now, there's vectors and there's scalars. Vectors, you will remember, guys, must have direction. Okay? Now, they share something with scalars. So can you guys remember what do they share with scalars? They're going to share with scalars the fact that they have value. But as opposed to scalars, they must have direction. So now, first thing we're going to do, how do I draw a vector? Let's take a look. Let's draw a nice little blue vector right here. And there we have it. There is our first vector. You'll notice right here it has a head, represented by an arrowhead, and you'll notice right here it has a tail. And this right here is the body of the vector, and its length represents the value. Sorry if this is a little squiggly, a little poor penmanship there, but you get it. The length of this vector represents the value. So if this one is 10 newtons, and I draw, let's say, another vector that's 20 newtons, it has to be twice as long. So this could be 10 and this could be 20. Okay, so we've got that down. Let's draw our first vector. Now I always like to have, to help myself out draw vectors, the xy axis. Let's put our first vector here. Okay. Now remember, when dealing with the x-axis, and this is very critical, we always in this class measure our angles one way. This is 0. This is 90. This is 180. This is 270. And this is also 360. So what you will notice, guys, is that this falls in the first quadrant, and this is our theta. And you could simply measure this, and this could say, let's say, be 60 degrees. So you could describe this vector by measuring the length of it. Let's say the length is going to be 15 newtons. And you could say this vector is 15 newtons at 60 degrees. But some of you guys are having some real problems, and you know, I did too when I was very young, dealing with these vectors. So let's make a new different color vector. Let's start it right here, and let's have it go like this. Now what could possibly be the angle for this vector? Well, notice, guys, it is below 180 over here. So if you start off here, you go 90, 180, you're going to go past 180. So I would use my protractor, I would measure this angle right here, and let's say it's like 32 degrees. And you'd say this angle is 32 degrees past 180. So you would get 180 plus 32 degrees, and you would find out that your theta is in fact 212 degrees. And you'd have to find the length, and then you could describe your vector that way. So that's how it really needs to be done, guys, and there's no debating it. It's the only way. And let's take a look at one more, the last way of doing it. Let's just say you're like this. Okay, here's our last angle, or our last vector. And now this one can be measured two ways. You can always measure any angle two ways. You can either measure it right here, so you see I could measure it there, or oops, I could measure it from over here. So let's say that this is 80 degrees, and then this side could possibly be 10 degrees. And you could say one of two ways. You could say that it's 270 plus 10 degrees, or you could also say that it's 360 minus 80 degrees. You know, 270 plus 10 is going to give you 280, And then 360 minus 80 would also give you 280, guys. So if you measure from either side, you're going to get the right way. But you have to remember, if you're in the fourth quadrant, it has to be between 270 and 36 degrees. And you always have to draw your XY axes, guys. A lot of people on the quiz were doing stuff like this. They had a triangle. It's always kind of hard to draw a triangle with this. So they had this triangle. Well, I don't know why they're doing with the triangle. So here's what happened. Sorry. You had a vector, and it said, make an angle at 90 degrees. This is not a vector. Sorry. You had a vector, and it said, make your next angle at 90 degrees. And a lot of people, what they wanted to do, they wanted to take their vector and put it like this. So you see, let's change it a little bit so it's exactly like 90 degrees, so that this was 90 degrees right here. Stop. They wanted to make this 90 degrees. That's not the case, guys. 90 degrees is always going to be straight up and down in your paper. Always 90 degrees. So guys, please don't make it with respect to any other lines. It's with your XY axes. Every single time you draw a vector and you have to measure the angle, make your XY axes. Okay, let's go back to this document. Now, we're still talking about how do we draw vectors, and there's one more way to draw vectors. Now, we did this with angles. Now, we don't always have to deal with angles. I know some of you guys may be disappointed, but we can also deal with just simply where it intersects the coordinates. So, oh, that's not what I wanted. That was strange. Let's go green. Let's go like this. And let's say we have this one right here. Now, you could describe this this particular vector, measure all the way around, and you could measure the length of it, or you could just simply find this point. Now, it goes in the x direction. It goes -1, 2, 3. It goes -3 in the x direction, so this point is -3. And then you could also take a look at the y direction. It goes 1, 2, goes down 2. And you could say that this vector is a -3, 2 vector. And that is just describing this. Now, once again, the tail of your vector is at the origin, but your head is going to be at this point. And this is an easy way to describe vectors. So we'll see where this comes back when we want to add vectors. So let's go take a look. We got this all done. We now can just simply cross this off. That's how you draw vectors, guys. Now remember, it has the parts, and you need to have the angle or the length or the coordinate. Angle plus length. A weird looking E. Or you could also use your coordinates. I think I just spelled coordinates. I spelled coordinate, but coordinates. Sorry. You'll figure it out later. We'll just erase it.